everyone. My name is Caroline DeJose, and I am here today to talk to you guys about the upcoming election for the 13th District here in Delaware. As many of you may know, Dave McBride has been the senatorial representative for this district for more than 38 years, and in that time, not a lot has changed. On top of this, he actually no longer lives in the district, and in many ways doesn't represent the people that live in his district. It's time for us to have some change, and I am here to introduce you guys to someone who I think can bring that about, Miss Marie Pinkney. Hello, Marie.
Hi, Caroline.
Say hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for watching today.
All right, so if you could start by telling us a little bit about what inspired you to run.
Sure, I think that's a really great question. There are a couple of reasons, but the biggest one has to do with my career and the work that I do.
So what is it that you do?
Yeah, so I'm a social worker. I work right now in acute trauma within our healthcare systems here in Delaware. So I focus on helping patients successfully discharge from the hospital.
That's amazing. How long have you been doing that?
It's been about 2 years now, and I really enjoy the work. It's really rewarding work, but it also gives really firsthand experiences with some of the broken systems in the state of Delaware.
I'm sure.
It's really difficult. There are times when I've worked with people who are employed in our chicken factories in the lower states. A lot of those individuals are also uninsured. Mm-hmm. So there are times when I have to explain to them why they don't have access to the same health care and post-acute care that other people have access to if they would have had insurance.
That's a good point. I think that's something that people don't think about is after the healthcare happens, after they actually make it to the hospital and receive treatment, leaving the hospital is a whole different ballgame. Mm-hmm. And that's where you come in, I think, with your work.
Yeah, because what I do is I set them up to make sure that they're able to be successful when they leave the hospital for whatever their post-acute care needs are. But I really see the differences in who has access to that post-acute care, who has access to healthcare in general, and it's discouraging. I also, because of the work that I do in trauma, I see just how many victims come in from gun violence. I see how many victims come in after getting into horrible car accidents because of the infrastructure in this state. And working firsthand and doing that work with people one-on-one, I really enjoy, but I also really get to see that it's not enough.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't promote change for enough people.
Right.
And it again shows us who has access to specific parts of the resources that exist in this state. And I just felt like that is unacceptable.
Absolutely. I think that's what really struck me about you is that you've already been doing the work of helping people, but it's been kind of on the micro level, one family at a time, which is amazing, but now you're wanting to create change on a larger level because you're thinking this just isn't enough, and so that's why you run for office. And I think that's really powerful because no matter how long you are in the political system, you're not going to forget those families that were standing beside you. You have all of those stories. This is personal for you, as well as professional. So I think that not only are you qualified, but your heart is absolutely in it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. One of the things that I really realized from working on a micro level is that felt like perpetuating broken systems. It felt like keeping them going, and to me that wasn't enough. You know, why, if we know that these are issues that a huge number of Delawareans are facing, why are we not completely changing systems to make sure that people don't have to continue to live this way? We're allowing it to happen.
That's an amazing way to look at it, is that you were helping people, but because you were seeing systemic change and not challenging that, it felt like perpetuating it. That's amazing. So since you decided to run, you have settled on 4 main platforms that you want to focus your change on as you get started. Could you help us understand those?
Yeah, sure. So the first one is healthcare. That's because, like I said, a lot of the work that I do has been around healthcare. So one of the things that we really want to do is bring a Medicaid buy-in product to Delaware.
Okay.
So that would mean that when people are overqualified for Medicaid because they make too much money, that they have the option to pay to have Medicaid coverage at an affordable rate.
Okay.
So it gives everyone access to affordable healthcare here in Delaware.
Yeah,
we'd also under healthcare like to expand access to mental health and substance abuse treatment. We have some really good facilities here now, but it's not enough. Not everyone has access to it.
That's true, and you have experience with this as well, correct?
Yeah, I did adolescent mental health and substance abuse work for a long time, and I saw the same issues there too. We saw people who had access to to treatment, but others who didn't because of their insurance. We saw kids who came in through the school to prison pipeline, and working in adolescent mental health and substance abuse, you really get to see it, see it firsthand. You see people who have small charges. They come in, they're in high school, and they just shuffle right on through into the criminal justice system, and that's where they remain after they turn 18.
Right, and we really believe that if we had the right facilities and care and treatment, that we could turn that around.
Exactly. If everyone had access to it, if everyone was able to receive continued support, if they were able to expand those services into like IOP services in their homes and schools, we'd see better outcomes.
That's amazing. So what is your second platform?
Thank you. So the second is youth services. I love children. Most of what I do is for a successful next generation. So what we'd like to do with that is encourage some of our middle schools and high schools to stay open later in the evenings and on the weekends so that they can serve as community centers. Down here in the 13th district, there's really not anything for kids to do. And when kids have idle time, they do idle time things. And so we want to make sure that we are supporting them.
Absolutely.
In helpful ways.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, and the third platform is actually gun violence.
This is personal for you as well, I believe.
Absolutely. If we know anything in this state, it's that gun violence is a huge issue here.
Yeah.
Personally, as you mentioned, I had a friend from childhood who was murdered. He was murdered 20 days after his 20th birthday.
So young.
Yeah, he was very young, and like many of the murders that occur here in Delaware, it still remains unsolved. But he was one of the first people that I encountered who was a victim of gun violence, but he wasn't the last. I see it on a regular basis at work. Right. I see it in the lives of people who I come into contact with throughout the state. There aren't many people who are from Delaware that haven't had some kind of experience with gun violence, and I don't think that's something that we should be known for in this state.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, so what I'd like to do is work on decreasing the gun violence here in the state. We'd like to see things like community review boards that increase the community support within police presence in our neighborhoods, as well as really working to get some Senate bills passed that should have been passed during the last legislative session. Unfortunately, the current senator was able to withhold some of those pieces of legislation from coming to the Senate floor. So
they didn't even get to go to a vote.
They didn't even go to a vote. Some really helpful pieces of legislation that would do something about the gun violence in this state.
Right.
So we really want to work on getting those passed as well.
Yeah. So it's definitely an issue that we have in Delaware, and it's a complicated issue. It's not one that can be solved quickly, or else we would have done it by now. It's got to be a multi-tiered approach. We have to hit it at a few different levels. So that's really interesting to me, what you have told me about previously with the community policing, the idea that the police are coming in from the outside, they might be patrolling an area, but the people who actually live in that community have a lot better idea of what's going on. And if there can be fostered a sort of relationship or a partnership between the police, there can be not only more accurate information, but also a sense of trust. It can be a community building aspect. It can be a relationship building aspect between the police and the communities, which I think would be really helpful.
Me too. And one thing that I really like about that plan is that it's not just something that our campaign came up with. Yeah. We've been talking to constituents about what they think would work. We've been at the rallies for Breonna Taylor and for George Floyd, and for here in Delaware for Jeremy McDowell and for Yamahim Harris. We've been at those community events, and the communities of the members of the community are looking for these review boards. They're looking to have a say in how their communities are voiced and who has control and say over what goes on within the communities where we live, and that's what I think we should be doing.
I think that's really powerful. I think it's powerful because you're not even in office yet, and yet you're already talking with the constituents, you're talking with the people who this is affecting, you're listening and you're learning from them, and I have no doubt in my mind that you'll take that with you into office to continue to talk to the people. This isn't going to be another situation of a politician who gets in office and then stops talking to their constituents, the people that they're supposed to represent. Your heart is definitely with the people, and you're always involved. I had trouble even nailing you down for this event because you are always meeting with people, so I think that's something that's really important for people to hear, and something that really sets you apart and makes us feel like we need you right now. So thank you for getting to that. And I believe there was one more platform.
There is one more, and that's environmental justice. I'm very, very particular about this one. It's really near and dear to my heart. You know, we talk about climate change on a regular basis, and I absolutely think it's something that we need to address where we live if we don't have a planet, right?
Right.
But I think that to even take it a step further, the reason I talk about environmental justice is because a lot of times Black and brown communities, low-income communities are the first ones that take the hits when it comes to pollution, when it comes to poor water quality.
Yeah.
That's where we see these issues the most.
Right.
And
we've had that here.
We've had it all over the district. Thank you for saying that. So there is a part of the district up in the 16th RD who a couple of years ago there was a huge gas leak from from a company called Croda. My mom still lives in the 16th district. I grew up there, and my mom still, I see to this day, she's got respiratory issues. There's no way to tell if it was a result of that accident, but that community is one of 7 areas in the state that have high cancer rates. And it's typically, like I said, Black and brown communities. So what we want to do is make sure that that's not what's going on. That communities that people feel don't have a voice aren't the first ones to take hits when it comes to toxic releases.
And you want to do that by holding companies accountable.
Yes, absolutely. So that's our plan. Our plan is to work with DENRAC, one of the governing bodies for environmental issues, is to make sure that we have policies in place that hold corporations and companies accountable, that when they have accidents that they're pouring money back into communities to clean up the problems that they've created, and that number one, we first and foremost stop the problem from occurring, that these organizations are environmentally friendly, that they are using chemicals that aren't going to harm the health outcomes of the communities where they're planting their cells.
That's really really hits home right now with everything that has been going on. Environmental issues are definitely at the forefront. We're all feeling the effects of that. Things are weird with COVID as well right now. There's a lot of us not being able to go out. That's part of the reason we're doing this video today, is you can't really knock on the doors the way that you wanted to. I know how much you love talking to people.
Yes, I miss that so much.
So if I can give you like a couple minutes right now just to address the viewers, if there's anything that I left out that you would want them to know, or anything you want to say to them?
Sure. One thing I want to go back to is something that you talked about a little bit earlier about the responsibilities of politicians, elected officials. I'm very big on verbiage and the way that we frame and say things, and I think that people have forgotten what an elected official really is. I think that it's important that we remember that elected officials are public servants. You know, we elevate this platform of elected officials to be individuals who are untouchable and unreachable, but an elected official is supposed to serve the public. The public is the one who gives them the power to make choices and to be the voice. And my hope and what I plan to do with our campaign is to make sure that every step of the way we include community voice. You know, you mentioned that we've been doing it already, and I think that what is a politician or elected official doing if they don't have a community voice behind them every step of the way?
Absolutely.
So that is what we intend to do. We intend to make sure that every choice that we make is powered and backed by the voices of the people who give us the ability to make those choices for them.
Absolutely.
So that's just kind of the thing I wanted to go back to.
Thank you. Well, if any of you who have watched this feel like you're identifying with what Marie is saying, if you're touched by her platforms, by who she is as a person, by this passion that she has, I would encourage you to go to her website to check out her Facebook page, Instagram, all of that, as well as to volunteer or even donate if you're able. Even the smallest amount is helpful, but what Marie's saying, volunteer in my ear here. So I have begun to volunteer as well. I'm one of the people who just sends text messages or a phone call to check in on people. There's small things that you can do even if you don't have a lot of time to help make a difference. We really do count. A lot of people believe that their vote doesn't count anymore, and I think that's a shame. There are people out there like Marie who really want to make that change, and certainly through your actions right now you can make a difference. So we hope to see you guys showing up on our pages and in our voicemails and everything soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.